donated sperm at the hospital due to financial hardship. In just 2 years, he donated over 690 times, averaging once a day. Over those 2 years, he earned a total of $24,000. He kept his Starbuck identity well hidden, but unexpectedly, 20 years later, he was sued. It turned out that among those 690-plus sperm donations, 533 resulted in successful pregnancies, meaning he was the biological father of over 500 children. Among them, 142 children sought to know their father's identity. They jointly filed a lawsuit in court, hoping to reveal the identity of this father. David had just bought a lottery ticket that didn't win, but he won 500 children. Fortunately, he signed confidentiality agreements before each donation, so as long as he didn't come forward, no one would know. The lawyer handed him an envelope. It contained the information of his 142 children. David was deeply reluctant to toss the files into the trash, but he wondered what his children looked like. Who could resist opening 142 blind boxes? David couldn't. He pulled out one file and opened it. Instantly stunned, it was a son, a soccer star. This was his childhood dream, now realized by his own child. He bought a ticket to watch his son showcase his skills. When his son scored the decisive goal, David cheered louder than anyone. His genes were truly exceptional. Inspired by his son, he returned to his old amateur soccer team. With renewed joy, he opened another blind box. Inside was a handsome young man working as a waiter in a cafe. David walked in and ordered a coffee. Their first conversation felt a bit awkward. His son seemed extremely impatient. After talking, David learned his son worked as a waiter. But with his handsome looks, he'd always dreamed of acting. Today happened to be the day of an audition, but his boss had ordered him to work overtime. He dared not risk it. If he skipped work for the audition and failed, he'd lose his job and end up homeless. David returned to his car, feeling disheartened. It turned out not all his children were doing well. In that moment, he wanted to do something for his son. David went back to the shop, tossed his car keys to his son, encouraging him to go to the audition while he covered his shift. Though puzzled why would a stranger help him, the son felt an inexplicable trust in this man. But just as his son left, the boss arrived. For abandoning his post, the son lost his job. David felt guilty, as if his good intentions had backfired. He waited outside, unsure how to explain. Yet his son returned with good news. His audition had been successful, officially launching his acting career. This sudden surprise completely captivated David. He resolved to meet all the children as a stranger. If they were thriving, he wouldn't interfere. If they were struggling, he'd do his best to help. His children were scattered across various professions: lifeguards, manicurists, tour guides, models, and street singers. David began silently watching over his children. When his model daughter dressed provocatively, he followed her. He harshly scolded passers-by with ill intent. Since no one drowned for years, his lifeguard son seemed useless, so he deliberately drowned to make his son seem important. When his singer son struggled, he became a fan, urging passers-by to toss more coins. To boost his manicurist daughter's sales, he pretended to be gay and got fancy nails done. When his tour guide son had no visitors, he attended his shows, visiting the same attraction over and over, just to boost his son's popularity. But his son was terrified, thinking this strange man had fallen for him. From then on, whenever he had free time, David would randomly pick a child to see if they needed help. But this time, a child's smile froze instantly, because it was his youngest child born with cerebral palsy, abandoned at birth to an orphanage. Seeing the child's condition, he wanted to turn and run, but if not for him, the child wouldn't suffer in this world. Ultimately, he mustered the courage to face this imperfect child. Not knowing what to do, he simply stayed by his side, like a father. He took him for walks and fed him meals. Because of this youngest son, David's mindset shifted. He prepared to reveal his identity, wanting to be a good father, to give his children the very best. But it was just wishful thinking. In reality, his life was strained. He was deep in debt, with collectors showing up at his door, gently waking him, helping him wash up. This was his life now. But a turning point arrived. The Starbucks incident escalated rapidly. 5 billion people worldwide were watching. The initial report came from the hospital. If David didn't reveal his identity and sued the hospital, he'd receive a huge sum for emotional distress. But David didn't want that. His children deserved to know who their father was. But now, all the coverage about Starbuck was negative. Even David's fiancée believed Starbuck was a pervert. This left David unsure whether to reveal his identity. That day, David went to his father's house for a family meal. In front of his daughter-in-law, his father not only praised David, saying, "Don't judge David by how unreliable he seems now. Back when his mother was gravely ill, her final wish was to go to Venice, but we couldn't afford the high travel costs back then." Yet to everyone's surprise, David suddenly produced $20,000 to take the family to Venice, where they spent his mother's happiest days. On the way back, his fiancée asked curiously, "How could you afford such a large sum?" David proudly replied, "I earned it with my skills." Though he spoke lightly, only David knew how grueling it was to donate sperm 690 times over 2 years. Yet when the world condemned Starbuck, his son unexpectedly stepped forward to defend this father he'd never met. This made David hesitate. He considered revealing his identity. So David approached his father and confessed he was Starbuck. Unexpectedly, his father didn't blame him but smiled joyfully. How could he not be happy with over 500 new grandchildren? David asked his father for guidance. Without a word, his father pulled out savings to pay off his debts. So David gave up the compensation and revealed his identity. But then he received news his fiancée was in labor. He rushed to the hospital. Mother and child were safe, though he was already a father to over 500 children. Gazing at this tiny newborn, An indescribable surge of emotion welled up inside him. Soon, a nurse entered and said someone was waiting for him outside. David stepped out and was stunned by the scene before him. The hospital entrance was packed with people, all children he had helped. They had brought gifts to welcome this new little brother. David's child was born into a family of hundreds of older siblings.